My name is Marcus Vance. I am 31 years old, and 2 days before Thanksgiving, I stepped off a 10-hour travel day from Chicago, straight into the dumbest ambush my family has ever tried to pull on me. I barely had my suitcase up the front steps when my mother yanked open the door. No greetings or welcome home, just this flat rehearsed line. "You will watch your sister's kids. We are taking a family vacation." She was already turning away like the decision had been settled weeks ago, and I was just another piece of luggage being dropped where it belonged. My sister appeared in the hallway, juggling 4 kids in little puffy jackets with flushed cheeks and eyes wild with pre-vacation hype. She grinned at them and spoke loud enough for the entire block to hear telling them not to wipe their noses on me. They giggled and actually leaned in to smear their faces on my coat, while my mother laughed like it was absolute comedy. 10 hours of airports and recycled air, alongside thousands of dollars in last-minute tickets and presents, and I was the punchline. I refrained from reaching for a hug. I never even stepped fully inside. I merely stood there on the threshold with my hand still on my luggage handle and felt that familiar switch flip in my chest. The exact one that always arrives right before I fund something they cannot afford or resolve an issue I never caused. Except this time, I arrived prepared for a completely different role. I smiled slowly and faintly and inappropriately while stating that they really should have checked their emails before speaking. My mother's smile twitched. My sister rolled her eyes. "Marcus, do not start since we have a flight in 3 hours." The children were chanting something regarding snow and hot cocoa. Underneath all of that noise, one thought sliced through my head like glass. Why am I forever the only person expected to sacrifice, while nobody ever bothers to ask if I agree with it? My mother's eyes narrowed as she asked what I had done, and in that very second, I knew this was the moment everything would finally break. Before I tell you what was spoken and what occurred after I walked out, tell me what time it is for you right now. And where exactly are you watching from? I remain curious to see how far this story will travel. What I actually said was extremely simple. I am not staying to babysit, and you might want to open your booking application before you begin loading the vehicle. My mother Brenda blinked like I had spoken another language. My sister Chloe let out this sharp little laugh before shoving a diaper bag into my arms and calling me hilarious while telling the kids to greet Uncle Marcus as their Thanksgiving present. 4 kids barreled into me, aged 10, 8, 5, and an infant on a hip with sticky hands grabbing and winter boots kicking my shins. Behind them, Brenda already had her rolling luggage by the door with her coat on and purse zipped like she was a celebrity heading to the airport while I was the hired help. "Mother," I said, while lowering my voice, "I did not fly across the country to be your unpaid nanny while you head to Lake Tahoe." She froze. "How do you know where we are?" "Traveling," she snapped. I shrugged. "You texted me the rental link by accident instead of Chloe 2 weeks ago." I watched the realization crawl across her face. "And since the confirmation came through on the card bearing my name, I did what I always do whenever my finances are involved." Chloe scoffed. "Checked every minor detail like an absolute control freak." "No," I replied. "I canceled it 3 days ago." For one full heartbeat, nobody even breathed. Then Chloe fumbled for her phone with her thumb flying over the Lake Tahoe resort application. I could see the screen reflected in her widened eyes. "Booking voided and refund processed." Brenda stepped closer with her voice dropping into that dangerous trembling register. "Marcus, tell me you are joking." I remembered every favor over the past 5 years, from refinancing their Miami home using my credit because theirs was ruined to putting the utilities under my name for just a few months, then covering Chloe's rent since childcare was so expensive, and purchasing groceries from Chicago at 2 a.m. so my nephews and nieces would avoid eating noodles again. I remembered wiring funds last spring instead of taking a vacation with friends because Brenda had called sobbing about the mortgage. All those minor favors that added up to me silently funding their entire existence while I lived like a university student in downtown Chicago. You neglected reading the past few statements, did you not? I asked. Brenda's jaw clenched tight. I have been paying that balance off for you, remember? I continued alongside the house and the electricity and the internet, plus Chloe's sport utility vehicle payment. You gave me the credentials. You signed everything over because I was the responsible individual. So, no, I am certainly not joking. I removed my name from your vacation. The 8-year-old tugged my sleeve. Are we missing the snow, Uncle Marcus? Behind him, the 10-year-old whined. We informed our friends we were going snowboarding. Their little faces tilted upward for answers they should have received from their mother rather than the walking wallet they call uncle. You are not going anywhere under my supervision, I stated gently. You are not my responsibility. I pivoted back to Chloe. You never asked if I was fine missing work for a week, or if I even wanted to fly out here. You and Mother simply decided. Would drop everything, because my life must appear overly flexible to you. Inside my mind, a montage flashed. Last Christmas, when I skipped a corporate retreat to fly home and help out, only to spend 4 days cooking and babysitting while Chloe went holiday shopping and Brenda bragged about her Chicago architect son funding the feast. The Labor Day before, that when my bonus check went straight toward their overdue property taxes instead of into my personal savings. If I had said no even once back then, or if I had walked away instead of wiring funds, where would I be right now? On a beach in Costa Rica? Inside my own penthouse instead of a tiny studio rental? Probably not here, standing in a Miami doorway being handed 4 children like a complimentary daycare center. The 5-year-old stomped. We want to play outside. She ran toward the yard in her little sneakers with no hat and no gloves, while November winds sliced down the street. No, I said sharply while catching her hood. You are not going anywhere until someone who actually resides here takes responsibility. Her lower lip trembled. The infant began to cry in sympathy. Chloe threw her hands up in the air. Look at what you caused. Why are you acting so dramatic? It is just 1 week, Marcus. You fly first class constantly. You will survive playing house with your nephews and nieces. I looked from Brenda's clenched jaw toward Chloe's flaring nostrils and felt that cold, steady place inside me settle. I never fly first class, I stated. I fly economy. Then I forward the upgrade funds to you. Brenda hissed. You cannot simply cancel our trip, Marcus. We already checked in entirely, the flights and the mountain passes. Regarding those flights I interrupted, you will want to check your airline application as well. Chloe tapped furiously before going completely still. Why does it say these credits sit under the name Marcus Vance? She whispered. Because I paid for them, I replied, and because I am finished acting as the default option. I did not travel here to babysit. I came here to quit. Brenda's face turned pale, then deep red. You ungrateful child, she started, but she never got to finish. The doorbell rang, carrying a calm and precise chime that sliced through the chaos. Chloe frowned while glancing at the clock. Who on earth is that? We are not expecting any visitors. You are not, I said while sliding the diaper. Bag back into Chloe's stunned hands. I am. As the bell chimed a second time, much louder this round, a strange stillness settled across the entryway. This, I thought, as my mother's hand hovered over the doorknob, is the moment everything shifts. Brenda swung the door open, displaying the brittle politeness she reserves for strangers, and there he stood, a man in his early 40s, wearing a dark blazer, over denim, with a state-issued badge on a lanyard and a clipboard tucked under one arm. Good afternoon. I am David Reed, representing Child Welfare Services, he stated, offering a professional smile that never quite reached his eyes. We conversed on the phone regarding a follow-up visit. Brenda actually took a step backward. "There has to be some mistake," she stammered. "We never called." "I did," I said, stepping into David's line of sight. "I am Marcus, their uncle, and I just flew in from Chicago." David's gaze flicked over my luggage, the cluster of kids half-zipped into coats, Brenda's wheeled suitcase, and the chaos of half-packed bags mixed with abandoned snacks on the floor. During that single sweep, I watched him catalog the scene precisely the way I had been cataloging my family my entire life. "Is right now still a suitable time?" he asked smoothly. Chloe's voice knifed through the heavy air. "Marcus, what did you just do?" The previous time I had truly analyzed their lives without attempting to fix anything for them was 3 weeks ago during a glitchy video call. I had answered from my firm's conference room late at night, with stacks of blueprints on the table, my shirt wrinkled and my brain completely fried. On their end, the camera was propped up on a kitchen counter. 2 of the children were in the backyard wearing only t-shirts, even though I could see frost covering the grass with one of them barefoot and the infant in a sagging diaper wandering dangerously close to the pool gate that never actually locked. Chloe was resting on the porch, holding a glass of wine and scrolling through social media, while one of the boys stood near the sliding glass door, weeping because his hands were red and numb. "Can you head inside?" I had asked him gently. "Ask your mother to put your jacket on." He merely pressed his wet face against the glass, leaving a streak, while Chloe snapped that he was totally fine, Marcus. "They are building character out there. Regardless, could you send me $200 for holiday outfits?" I ended that call and stared at my own reflection across the blackened screen. This exhausted man who shifted heaven and earth for people who could never be bothered to zip up a jacket. Then I pulled up the state welfare hotline and filed a report. Not because I believed my sister was a monster, but because the pattern was blatantly clear. The children were mere afterthoughts whenever material comforts or her social life competed. I supplied the dates, the screen captures, and the text messages where she bragged about free babysitting at Mother's house so she could go party that weekend. Child Services opened a quiet file and told me they would likely start with a home visit, bringing no drama unless they spotted a serious problem. They asked when both the children and the primary caregivers would definitely be present at home. The holidays I had stated, they will all be there then. Now standing in the doorway alongside David, my heart hammered against my ribs, but it was not fear. It was the pure adrenaline that strikes when someone finally steps between you and a moving train you have been holding back using your bare hands. "This is absolutely ridiculous," Brenda muttered while blocking the entrance. "We take excellent care of our grandchildren. We are about to take them on a mountain getaway, for heaven's sake." David's smile cooled by a few degrees. "That is precisely why I am here today, ma'am. We prefer seeing how children are cared for during routine daily life, and not just when everything appears picture perfect. It will not take long." "May I step inside?" Chloe hissed at me beneath her breath. "If anything happens because of this, Marcus, I swear to you." I looked straight at her and spoke just loud enough for David to hear, stating that nothing is going to happen if everything remains as safe and stable as you keep assuring me it is right. David stepped inside while his eyes analyzed the sink full of dishes crusted with yesterday's dinner, the half-empty wine bottles sitting on the counter at noon, the space heater placed too close to a pile of laundry, and the infant sagging against Chloe's shoulder with a lollipop stuck to his hair. I never needed to explain. The resident spoke fluently. "Where are the children's bedrooms?" David asked. "I would like to see where they sleep and what kind of supervision they receive." Brenda immediately jumped in. "We were just leaving for the airport, so things are somewhat messy, but normally Marcus is here." Chloe snapped while jerking her chin toward me. "He is always willing to help out. He simply picked today to suffer a massive meltdown." David glanced over at me. Do you reside here full time? No, I replied. I live in Chicago. I am an architect at a design firm. I pay their mortgage, their utility bills, the vehicle Chloe drives, and a majority of their groceries. I am not the caregiver. I am merely the funding. My voice never shook. It was flat and factual, resembling the way I present to clients. And I flew down here because my mother begged me to return home for the holidays. She never mentioned this vacation or childcare even once. David nodded slowly while scribbling something down on his clipboard. Understood, he said. I am going to inspect the kids' bedrooms and the backyard area. You are welcome to remain in the living room while I complete that. As he moved down the hallway with the kids trailing behind him like a small, confused parade, I caught the youngest child's eye and offered him a faint smile. None of this mess was their fault. They had simply been born into a family that treated people as resources instead of actual relationships. A wicked thought slithered into the back of my mind. If I truly disappeared tomorrow and blocked their numbers shut off, the cash flow obtained a new email address, and never looked back, what would they do with these 4 little humans they had counted on me to absorb? Abandon them with whoever answered the phone. Drag them along resentfully while chasing the next major distraction, or worst of all, actually be forced to grow up and parent them. Chloe's fingernails dug deep into her phone case. You are completely sick, she whispered. You called child services on your own flesh and blood. I met her furious glare, feeling something inside me finally harden instead of constantly bending. No, I replied. I called welfare services for your children. The air inside the living room grew heavy and sour while David's footsteps creaked on the floorboards overhead. Brenda paced behind the sofa like a trapped animal, muttering that this was going to blemish their record forever. Do you comprehend that, Marcus? This could destroy absolutely everything. Do you want the state to take the kids away? If you are doing everything correctly, nobody is taking anyone anywhere. I stated, even though a piece of me knew that for the first time in their lives, someone aside from myself held leverage against them. Chloe aggressively rounded on me with wild eyes. You believe you are some sort of hero because you cover a few expenses. You lack children of your own. You clearly do not understand all right. Your lifestyle consists of brunch outings and corporate emails and expensive footwear. Ours consists of dirty diapers and school homework and zero sleep. You are the individual possessing all the free time and excess wealth. Naturally, you should pitch in. That is literally your duty as the successful sibling. Those words struck like a physical slap, but not because they were novel, but because they were finally spoken aloud. That remained the core belief beneath every guilt-ridden phone call and passive-aggressive text message regarding my nice life. I allowed the silence to stretch for 3 long seconds before feeling my mouth curve into a smile so icy it terrified even myself. You are correct, I whispered softly. It has functioned as my job because I allowed it to be, but employment can be terminated. Brenda abruptly stopped pacing. Do not dare speak like that after everything we sacrificed for you. Like exactly what I snapped, feeling my calmness crack for merely a moment. Like making me work dual part-time shifts in high school while you drained my savings account for a brand new truck. Like pressuring me to absorb more student debt because architects eventually earn bank, and then labeling me ungrateful when I refused to open a credit account in your name. Or perhaps, like this particular week, when you flew me down under the deception of a family Thanksgiving just so I could serve as your unpaid nanny while you escaped to Lake Tahoe on my dime. Brenda's face grew visibly mottled. We plan to pay you something. Eventually, she insisted weakly. Really, I shot back at her. Before or after purchasing the ski passes, before or after the luxury spa treatments you reserved, Chloe visibly grimaced. How could you possibly know about that? Her smartphone remained in her grip, with the resort application still open in the background. I tilted my head slightly, because exactly as I mentioned earlier, I have been paying off the card you utilized, and whenever I spot a $2,400 charge labeled Alpine Peak Spa and Resort on an account meant for groceries and utilities, I investigate it. Chloe's voice escalated into a sharp shriek. You possessed zero rights to cancel that getaway or touch those flight reservations. They were booked under my name, I stated. Paid using my plastic, my travel miles, and my solid credit score. You ceased opening your own financial statements over a year ago, remember? Far too stressful for you. So I simply logged in. I consolidated the debt. I refinanced the loans. I functioned as the adult, while you all continuously played the victim. I reached inside my carry-on bag and extracted a thin folder I had tucked away before boarding at the Chicago airport. This right here, I proclaimed, laying it down on the coffee table, represents every single payment I have covered for you over the past 3 years. Mortgage, electric, water, internet, car loans, and even those foolish streaming platforms so you could binge reality television while crying to me that you could not afford shoes for the kids. Chloe aggressively snatched the topmost page. Her eyes quickly skated across the printed digits. 1,800, then 600, then 320 month after painful month. Her mouth opened and closed much like a gasping fish. This absolutely cannot be accurate, she whispered in shock. You are making it look incredibly bad. Mathematical numbers remain entirely neutral, I replied. They simply show exactly what they are. Somewhere directly above us, a child laughed at something David had mentioned, creating a bright, oblivious sound that sliced through the heavy tension like a ringing bell. Brenda instantly seized upon that sound. See, there they are, perfectly happy. They're totally fine. You blew this situation way out of reasonable proportion. I leaned my back against the wall, feeling strangely and remarkably steady. Happy children do not somehow erase unpaid mortgages, I countered. They do not magically erase incredibly unsafe parenting choices. They certainly do not erase the manner in which you transformed me into a living, breathing cash machine. Chloe's face twisted in raw anger. You absolutely love tossing that specific term around. Cash machine. Do you want to know what you truly are? Incredibly bitter. You failed to find a partner to have children with, so you actively punish me for building a family. That specific insult landed squarely in the softest, most vulnerable part of me, the exact place where my quiet, hidden fear of ending up completely alone resides, curled up and deeply ashamed. I mentally felt it flinch, and subsequently I felt that fear completely burn away. There it finally is, I stated almost pleasantly. The exact line you have desperately wanted to utter for years. You lack children, therefore your life does not actually matter. My vocal tone dropped significantly. Thank you for finally being totally honest, Chloe. It makes this upcoming part so much easier to execute. Her false bravado instantly faltered. What upcoming part exactly? I did not merely cancel your luxury trip, I stated. 3 weeks ago, I permanently halted the automatic mortgage transfers. Your bank sent a very polite warning letter to this address, which I am assuming remains unopened on the kitchen counter buried beneath that massive pile of junk mail. They will provide you with a brief grace period. Then the severe late fees initiate. A few months from now, if nobody pays the balance, the notices will grow significantly less polite. Brenda gasped loudly, actually staggering backward a full step. You would never do something like that to your own parents. I already accomplished that, I replied. Yesterday, during my lunch break, I visited my financial institution and signed the official paperwork removing my name from your loan entirely. If you wish to keep this property, you will have to qualify based upon your own income and credit history. That is literal. Fraud Chloe spat viciously. Absolutely not. I countered evenly. It is simply called no longer functioning as a financial co-signer. Feel free to research it. Chloe was visibly shaking now. The sport utility vehicle, she blurted out. You co-signed the loan for that truck. My children desperately need. I flagged the missed payments early this morning. I sharply cut in. The repossession agency will arrive at the end of the month unless somebody brings that specific account current. They will definitely not be contacting me. Brenda's hand instantly flew to cover her mouth. The electricity, she whispered in sheer terror. The running water. Marcus, you certainly would not. I already finalized that part too, I confirmed. The automatic billing system is completely gone. Next week, if you fail to put a card under your own name on those utility accounts, the lights will simply shut off. The wireless internet dies entirely. No more streaming movies, no more late-night online shopping, and no more video calls begging for just a little financial help until Friday arrives. Brenda's eyes rapidly filled with utter panic. No, there is no possible way. Please, she whimpered with her voice cracking on. The final word as if she could magically rewind the clock using sheer desperation alone. Before I could formulate an answer, heavy footsteps sounded along the wooden stairs. David appeared with the 4 children walking behind him, appearing calmer now, with curious eyes bouncing rapidly between the tense adults. Thank you immensely for your time, he stated in a businesslike tone. I have completed my initial walkthrough inspection. I am going to leave you all with a detailed checklist regarding several critical safety concerns. Wall outlets requiring safety, covers the gate near the swimming pool, needing a proper latch, alongside severe supervision issues that desperately need addressing. This initial visit will be placed on file as a formal warning. I will return for a mandatory follow-up shortly after the holidays conclude. If conditions have noticeably improved, that will be the absolute end of this matter. If they have not improved, we will have to seriously explore other options. Chloe visibly choked on her breath. What other options? David met her frantic gaze squarely. State support services mandatory parenting classes, or in extreme cases, placement with capable relatives, or the foster care system. We are nowhere near that drastic stage yet. However, you firmly need to understand that this is absolutely not a joke. Chloe's eyes instantly darted toward me, brimming with pure, unadulterated hatred. He maliciously planned this, she spat out. He perfectly timed it. He desperately wants to ruin us. David raised a hand to interrupt. Right now, I do not care at all about your toxic sibling dynamics, he stated firmly. I only care about those 4 vulnerable children. And they strictly require sober and present adults, making completely safe decisions on their behalf. Take this written checklist extremely seriously. That is all I am going to say for today. He handed Brenda a thick stapled packet and marched directly toward the front door. The children trailed after him, quietly whispering among themselves. As the heavy door clicked shut behind him, the very last thin layer of fake pretense within that house vanished alongside it. For a brief second after David departed, nobody dared move a muscle. The solitary sound was the low hum of the kitchen refrigerator and the distant echoing bark of a neighbor's dog. Then Brenda furiously rounded on me. You have thoroughly humiliated this entire family, she hissed venomously. With that welfare agent, with this pathetic money stunt, and with absolutely everything else. Do you actually think your fancy Chicago job makes you vastly superior to us? Do you believe you can just walk in here and rip our lives apart merely because you are throwing a childish tantrum? I calmly retrieved my folder from the coffee table and smoothly slid it back into my travel bag. I never tore anything apart, I replied quietly. I simply stopped taping it all together so you would not have to finally view the deep cracks. The front door suddenly swung open again, and my father, Arthur, stepped inside, holding car keys in hand with his sunglasses still resting on his face like he was mid-vacation already. What exactly is going on here? He demanded while taking in Chloe's blotchy face, Brenda, clutching the welfare checklist, and my luggage still parked directly in the entryway. We are severely going to miss our scheduled flight. We are definitely not going anywhere, Chloe aggressively snapped back. Marcus canceled absolutely everything and called child services on us. His head rapidly swiveled toward me, with his fists tightly clenching. Tell me that is entirely untrue. I steadily met his stare, remembering the angry voicemail he had left me last month when I informed him I could not cover their property taxes again. The vicious way he had snarled, asking how, after everything they sacrificed for me, I could not manage this one simple thing. The luxury resort is canceled. The flight credits are strictly under my name now. The state agent just departed, and I have completely removed my name from your endless financial mess, I stated. All of that information is completely true. He took a threatening step closer, crowding directly into my personal space, exactly the way he used to when I was 16 and dared to push back against him. We physically raised you, he menacingly growled. We maintained a roof over your head and provided food for your mouth. We never received external help from absolutely anyone, and this is exactly how you choose to repay us, by maliciously attempting to completely destroy us. I let out a single laugh, producing a flat and utterly humorless sound. You kept a decent roof over my head until I grew old enough to maintain a roof over yours, I countered. Then you happily handed me the massive bills and falsely labeled it family teamwork. Do you know who actually provided real help? Just me. While you constantly pretended the retirement pensions and disability checks were completely enough, and I watched endless collection notices pile up on the counter, Brenda sharply jabbed a finger directly at my chest. You are the oldest child, she violently snapped, finally delivering the propers. Exact line I had been patiently waiting for. That specifically means something important. It means you automatically step up whenever your family desperately needs you. Your struggling sister has 4 children. Your father's lower back is permanently ruined. My personal health is nowhere near what it used to be. You do not get to simply opt out just because you feel a bit tired. Your eternal responsibility. Something deep inside me went very still. No, I firmly replied. It felt like my responsibility back when I was just a kid and possessed zero choice. It felt like my responsibility when I was drowning in architecture school debt, yet still wiring you cash because I could not bear the horrific thought of the kids sitting in the dark. But I am a fully grown adult now. I finally get to decide what exactly I am responsible for, and I am completely choosing myself today. Chloe scoffed loudly. You are absolutely not choosing yourself. You are purely choosing petty revenge. I looked at her, taking time to really look at the dark exhaustion circles under her eyes and the way her hand visibly trembled while holding the state checklist. True revenge would involve calling David back and telling him to come confiscate the kids right now today, I calmly said. Vengeance would entail reporting every single lie you have ever told on your state benefits applications, and every time you worked strictly under the table while still collecting government aid. All I have actually done so far is merely step backward and let your very own foolish choices finally catch up to you. Arthur's face rapidly darkened. You would never dare do that, he whispered fiercely. We truly need that financial help. We are rightfully entitled to it. You are legally entitled to exactly what the government program says you are, I replied coldly, and that is entirely up to their auditors to figure out. I thought back to the online forms I had secretly filled out 3 months ago, remembering the scanned copies of forged checks and bank statements I had attached alongside the incredibly careful and clinical language I had utilized. Extreme concern regarding the fraudulent misuse of public funds within a multi-adult household containing vulnerable dependent children. I had not clicked submit out of pure, unadulterated anger. I had only done it out of total spiritual exhaustion. No more, acting as their personal shadow welfare program stacked directly on top of the actual state-funded one. You are the specific ones who pushed this matter into official legal channels. I continued. Not me at all. I just finally revealed the absolute truth to someone whose literal job is to legally listen. Brenda violently crumpled the welfare checklist inside her tight fist. Do you honestly think they are going to help us more? Just because you viciously tattled on us, she spat. No, I answered. I suspect they are going to closely examine the full financial picture. The retirement pensions, the disability income, the housing assistance, and the magical way Chloe avoids working, yet somehow always possesses freshly done nails alongside a fully stocked liquor cabinet, and then they will independently decide if you people still qualify for public handouts. That entire situation is completely out of my hands now. Arthur stared right at me, acting like he did not even recognize me anymore. Where are you even planning on staying? He aggressively demanded. Here, in this house. Right after everything you have maliciously done. I carefully weighed my ultimate answer. My new penthouse keys were sitting securely in my pocket, remaining shiny straight from the locksmith's hands. I had officially closed on it 6 weeks ago, quietly scraping together a down payment from the tiny crumbs left over after funding everyone else's constant emergencies. I had not told a single soul about it. The last time I ever mentioned potentially buying my own place, Brenda had immediately asked if there would be a guest bedroom for whenever they needed a relaxing break. I was originally going to crash here for a couple of nights, I stated evenly. New furniture for my apartment gets delivered early on Monday. His upper lip curled in profound disgust. Absolutely not, under any circumstances. You do not get to purposefully burn the entire house down and then sleep comfortably in the warm ashes. You want to arrogantly act like you are so much better than us now. Prove it by sleeping somewhere else tonight. I briefly glanced at Brenda, half expecting her to weak protest and say, Arthur, he is still our only son. She said absolutely nothing in my defense. Chloe's fearful eyes were glued firmly to the hardwood floor. It was all so incredibly clear that it felt almost genuinely funny. As long as I paid steep admission fee, I fully belonged. The exact second I finally stopped paying, I became utterly disposable. Message received loud and clear, I said. No dramatic yelling and 0 fake tears. I tightly grabbed my luggage handle and rolled it backward right over the threshold I had never fully crossed anyway. Right at the door, I paused and looked back at the three of them, huddled miserably around a pride, crumpled checklist, and a cancelled luxury vacation resembling survivors of a massive storm they had insisted was never coming. You are all right about exactly one thing, I casually said. I am definitely the oldest sibling, and for the very first time in my entire adult life, I am going to clearly show you what it looks like when I finally make decisions purely for myself. Then I proudly stepped out into the bright and completely indifferent Florida sun and pulled the heavy door firmly shut behind me. My new penthouse apartment in downtown Chicago was the exact opposite of that Miami house in every single way that truly mattered. Moderately small, but entirely mine alone. Incredibly quiet, paid for using my very own signature instead of funding someone else's manufactured crisis. When I officially unlocked it late that night, dragging my luggage over the smooth threshold, the entire place still smelled wonderfully like fresh paint and empty cardboard. zero forced family photos, and absolutely no stacks of unopened bills featuring my name on them, masking someone else's terrible guilt. I dropped my travel bag inside the master bedroom, sat down on the completely bare mattress, and simply listened to the beautiful silence. No television loudly blaring terrible kids shows no infant crying down the hall, and no smartphone constantly vibrating with fake emergency text messages, begging me to call immediately. For the very first time in many years, the only living person I had to take care of was myself. The following morning, I brewed terrible drip coffee, using a brand new machine, and watched the massive city crawl awake directly from my 30th floor window. I fully expected my cellular phone to stay mercifully silent and still. Inside my head, I had already accepted that Brenda and Arthur would spend the entire week telling anyone who would listen that I had completely lost my sanity. Instead, right around 11 in the morning, my screen brightly lit up displaying a name. I never thought I would see calling there voluntarily. Chloe. For one full minute, I simply stared blankly at it, letting the device aggressively buzz. Then I finally answered it. "Please do not hang up," she said immediately, with her voice sounding incredibly small in a manner I had never previously heard. "Please just listen, because I am not calling to yell at you." "All right," I cautiously replied. "You possess exactly 5 minutes to talk." She forcefully let out a very shaky breath. "I am genuinely sorry," she suddenly blurted out. "For absolutely everything. For the terrible way we ambushed you at the door. For Mother's highly manipulative speech about you being the oldest sibling. For that genuinely disgusting insult I threw at you regarding you not having any kids. She quietly trailed off. Playing in the background, I could hear loud cartoons and the clinking of dirty dishes rather than the echoing announcements of an airport terminal. "We never went anywhere at all," she admitted quietly, which is quite obvious now. The children hysterically cried for an entire hour. Mother locked herself in her bedroom, suffering from a massive migraine. Father has been aggressively working the phone, trying to get a buddy to somehow undo what you legally did concerning the house mortgage. But apparently that is not how banking laws actually work. A deeply grim and highly petty part of me that I barely even recognized felt a massive flicker of pure satisfaction hearing that. "Why exactly are you truly calling me right now, Chloe?" I asked. "Because David actually called us back," she whispered. He stated he is officially scheduling our mandatory follow-up far sooner than he originally thought, entirely because of some highly concerning additional information that recently came across his official desk. I knew exactly what that highly concerning additional information truly was. 2 weeks after I initially filed my anonymous fraud concern with the state housing office, a senior investigator had reached out to me seeking strict clarification. I had gladly provided exact dates, transfer amounts, and the exact way my personal money covered massive gaps that should never have existed if their legally stated income and welfare assistance were actually accurate. They had graciously thanked me and clearly stated that given there were vulnerable children deeply involved, the child welfare department would be immediately looped in. He specifically mentioned a full state audit, Chloe whispered right now, of mothers' and fathers' government benefits, the disability checks, and the federal housing vouchers. He said they will be extensively reviewing whether we have been totally honest regarding everyone's true income and who actually legally lives here. "And have you all been honest?" I asked flatly. Complete silence. Then, mostly, she replied, which universally meant absolutely not. "Look, I completely know we have leaned heavily on you far too much, all right. I genuinely know that. I told Mother that exact thing late last night. I warned her, we cannot continually expect you to magically catch us every single time we fall. I am currently searching for a real job at a local daycare facility. Actually, they told me they desperately need someone right after the new year begins. I am honestly trying." There it was, rearing up again that stupidly tiny part of me that still desperately wanted to fix broken things and foolishly say, "I will financially cover you until you receive your first paycheck." I ruthlessly strangled that toxic instinct directly in its crib. "Good," I firmly said instead. "You really should have done that exactly 3 years ago," she sadly sniffed. "I know I should have. I just really needed you to know that I finally heard you loud and clear, and I am incredibly scared right now." "The repo men took Father's car away early this morning, Marcus. Dragged it right out of the front driveway. The children stood there and watched it happen. It was horrible," she exhaled. "Extremely hard. This marks the very first time anything intensely real has actually happened, simply because we refuse to listen to you. Mother stubbornly keeps saying it is entirely your fault. But deep down, I know that is completely untrue. We did this to ourselves. We unfairly forced you directly into this horrible position." I blankly stared out at the bustling concrete street far below my window. "You did not force me anywhere at all," I replied slowly. "I willingly walked right into it, over and over again. I gladly wired the funds. I dutifully answered the frantic calls. I blindly flew back home whenever Mother cried. I canceled personal dates, exotic vacations, and essential sleep just for you people. That blame lands strictly on me. This current situation I gestured around at my wonderfully empty penthouse is me finally stepping completely out of that miserable role forever." "So what exactly happens now?" Chloe whispered into the receiver. "We are just permanently cut off from you." I could vividly hear the sheer terror echoing in her voice, and hiding right underneath it was something else entirely. The horrifying dawning realization that absolutely no magical backup plan was ever coming to save them again. "What happens now is that you people finally figure it out," I said. "You and Mother and Father must independently decide whether you are actually going to fix this mess or simply let it all catastrophically fall apart. You effectively parent your own kids. You actually work for a living. You communicate honestly with the state caseworkers. You learn to live strictly within whatever resources you actually possess, and not whatever extra cash you can forcefully squeeze out of me." I briefly hesitated. I am definitely not calling the welfare office back to foolishly ask them to go easy on you all. I am not calling the mortgage bank to place my name back onto any documents. I am never wiring you a financial lifeline every single time you feel slightly uncomfortable. Those pathetic days are permanently over. Chloe remained totally quiet for a very long time. When she finally spoke again, her voice sounded slightly steadier. "Understood," she quietly said. "Perfectly understood. I absolutely hate it. I genuinely hate you a tiny bit right now, if I am being totally honest. But I finally comprehend it." She audibly swallowed hard. "If I occasionally send you a photograph of the kids, will you at least bother to look at it?" That simple question somehow hurt significantly more than any vicious accusation ever could. "Yes," I replied very softly. "I promise I will look at them." After we hung up the call, my phone buzzed again almost immediately. This time around, it displayed an unknown number originating from Florida. I purposely let it ring directly to my voicemail. When I eventually played the message back, my father's voice filled the quiet room, sounding extremely low and icy cold. "If you actually think this war is over, then you are vastly dumber than I originally thought," he threatened. "You eagerly want to deeply embarrass this entire family. Go right ahead and try, but you definitely do not get to just walk away totally clean from us. You will eventually see." He violently hung up the connection without speaking another word. I remained sitting there listening to that pathetic threat completely dissolve into digital static, and instead of feeling any fear, I only felt immense clarity. Arthur was severely unaccustomed to ever losing total control. Permanently cutting off my endless money supply meant he could not selfishly utilize me as his personal disaster fund anymore, and that terrifying reality severely panicked him. If he truly wanted to escalate this conflict, he would be doing it entirely without my financial help for the very first time in several decades. I slowly opened my personal laptop, logged securely into my bank accounts, and with a few very deliberate mouse clicks, I permanently canceled the final 3 recurring auto transfers. Grocery deliveries, the shared cellular phone plan, and the miscellaneous emergency fund I had generously established for Chloe's disasters that had somehow morphed into her weekly entertainment budget. Then I finally pulled up a pending email from a state housing investigator I had been purposefully ignoring for a week, asking if I possessed any additional financial documentation. Quickly attached the heavily scanned folder detailing years of payments, confidently hit send, and peacefully sat back in my chair. A dangerously quiet and razor-sharp bridge had firmly been constructed between my endless exhaustion and their incoming consequences, and his professional name was David Reed. By the final week of February, the chaotic dust had settled just enough for me to clearly observe the beautiful shape of my brand new life. My apartment actually possessed nice furniture now. A comfortable sofa I had handpicked simply because I genuinely liked it and not because it was heavily discounted on clearance. A solid wooden bed frame that absolutely did not wobble. A very small dining table featuring exactly 2 matching chairs because I simply did not require any more. I peacefully woke up to my own scheduled alarm clock instead of a frantic 6 a.m. crisis call. My personal savings account for the very first time ever actually stayed entirely untouched for 1 full month. 0 mysterious emergency withdrawals, only waiting patiently until my next payday arrived. Down in Miami, absolutely everything was violently coming due all at once. The state benefits office had officially mailed Brenda and Arthur a certified letter. We deeply regret to inform you that your specific case file has been randomly selected for a comprehensive review. And Chloe quietly texted me a clear photograph of it extremely late one night, accompanied by a solitary word written underneath. Why? I never bothered to answer her. The very next image she desperately sent, exactly 1 week later, was a shot of their empty driveway. No sport utility vehicle and no luxury sedan. Just a few dark oil stains resting on the bare concrete. Typed directly beneath it, she said they took both vehicles away. I simply placed my phone face down on the desk and went right back to carefully highlighting a new client contract. A few short days after that event, a tiny envelope, lacking any return address, unexpectedly showed up inside my building mailbox. The cursive handwriting scrawled on the front was painfully and instantly familiar. The exact same loopy cursive that had proudly signed every single school permission slip and every birthday card back when I was a young kid. It belonged to my mother. Tucked inside was a folded check written for $300, alongside a brief note written on lined notebook paper. We are truly doing what we possibly can right now, it simply stated. I know it is nowhere near enough to repay you. I absolutely never cashed it. I smoothly slid it into a locked drawer resting alongside my travel passport and my shiny new penthouse deed. A highly tangible maybe resting securely inside a solid box of pure definites. I was never truly interested in maliciously punishing them forever. I was merely interested in patiently seeing if this extremely sudden sense of personal accountability would actually last much longer than their fleeting guilt usually did. In early April, my work email loudly pinged with a secure message arriving from David Reed. He politely thanked me for my ongoing cooperation and then detailed the strict results of the state review utilizing cool and bureaucratic language. Several specific benefits were heavily adjusted, while others were entirely suspended pending full financial repayment. Mandatory intensive parenting classes were assigned for Chloe. Unannounced random home visits were firmly scheduled for the duration of the next 6 months. The young children will currently remain inside the family home. At this specific time, he formally wrote, there is still highly significant room for growth and improvement, but we have thankfully witnessed some initial positive behavioral changes. Attached to the bottom was a very brief personal note. I intimately know this entire grueling process has been incredibly difficult for you. Your brave report highly likely prevented things from getting significantly worse for those children. Please make sure to take excellent care of yourself moving forward. Exactly 2 days later, Chloe emailed me a clear photograph of the kids standing incredibly proudly in front of a small and somewhat worn apartment complex, with each of them tightly holding a brass key on a brightly colored plastic ring. The attached caption clearly read, "This is our very own place, and while it is tiny, it is truly ours. So thank you for everything, even if you actively hate me now." I stared deeply at their smiling little faces, the visibly missing front tooth on the youngest, the extremely crooked ponytail tied on the little girl, the protective way the oldest boy stood slightly in front of the others, acting like he had proudly appointed himself as their physical shield. And suddenly, I felt something tight inside my chest finally unclench forever. I intentionally did not respond right away. I let a couple of quiet weeks peacefully pass by, allowing my own complicated emotional reaction to fully settle down. Then, late one evening, as spring rain drifted violently past my tall window in heavy sheets, I quickly snapped a beautiful picture of the ring. Chicago skyline taken right from my living room. Brilliant streaks of golden light beautifully cutting straight through the deep, dark sky. I casually typed back that there was absolutely no hate remaining here, just extremely firm boundaries. That was absolutely it. 0 colorful heart emojis, no dramatic declarations of love, absolutely no fake promises to visit them anytime soon. Just a massive, uncrossable line drawn perfectly clearly between their chaotic lives and my peaceful one. Brenda has stubbornly never called me again. Arthur has most definitely never offered any form of an apology. Extremely proud men exactly like him simply never do. They arrogantly sit back and just wait for the entire world to magically bend right back toward them. They wait for the brave person who finally said no to eventually soften up and foolishly say, "Fine, I will help you just this once, but I absolutely refuse to ever bend myself anymore." Late one night, while sitting peacefully on my new couch holding a warm mug of coffee, I suddenly realized I was openly laughing. Not at some funny television show or a random text message, just laughing beautifully at nothing at all, laughing purely at the bizarre absurdity of exactly how incredibly quiet my entire daily life had finally become. There was absolutely no suffocating dread hiding inside my chest whenever my phone unexpectedly lit up, because roughly half the selfish people who consistently used to drain my soul simply did not possess my brand new phone number. There were never any terrifying surprise bank overdraft alerts caused because someone else's preventable emergency had unjustly eaten up my rent money. There was finally just pure, empty space. Plenty of quiet room to just breathe deeply. Abundant room to actually sit down and think about what I truly wanted out of life. Exciting international trips I might actually decide to take soon. Interesting new hobbies I might suddenly decide to pick up. And perhaps maybe one beautiful day building a family founded entirely upon free choice instead of toxic financial obligation. Foolish people, absolutely love to preach endlessly about blind family loyalty, discussing blood and duty, and how we are supposedly all we have got in this cruel world. But here is the exact ultimate question that consistently keeps circling inside my head whenever I look back at that miserable Florida doorway. What exactly do you think happens when the specific person you have always treated purely as a backup plan, as a disposable safety net, and as the one who will always foolishly say yes, finally walks away forever and simply never comes? Bah,